All right, let's go to the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Johnny Mac is in the house. We had a request for R.I.P. Vader, passed away. So we had to open up with the Johnny Mac segment with the Vader theme song today. I hope that appeases Nick Cuba.
Leon White, all-time great, is also a professional football player before he became a wrestler. Was actually a third-round pick.
I was going
to
say,
Los Angeles Rams.
Was he not an NFL player? That's how he kind of got his start.
Yeah, he was a legit prospect. He was an All-American center at Colorado. Was drafted in the third round. Just had a lot of knee problems. And that sort of short-circuited his NFL career. But he did play in Super Bowl 14
How
for the
about
Rams.
that? I did not know that.
Yeah, you learned something on the Sports Pass.
Super Bowl 14, he played for the Rams?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 1978 was their third-round pick.
How about that? Unbelievable. The man known as Vader passed away, what was it, last night?
Yeah, his son confirmed he passed away. He'd been having a lot of heart issues, so I think he had open heart surgery recently, so that was part of the problem. And he was, for anyone who knows that industry, he was an all-time great, arguably the best really super heavyweight guy of his era.
Yeah.
And world champion just about everywhere, no matter where he went.
Yeah, it was a very agile guy. I remember he's such a big guy, but he was able to do things like all over, top rope, all sorts of stuff like that. I didn't realize, though, that he played in the Super Bowl. That's pretty interesting stuff there. So I want to get into I want to ask you a little bit about this. I've been seeing a lot of people, in fact, multiple sources. Alex Marvez tweeted, you retweeted this, that a couple of guys, former Eagles college scouting director, and others I've seen are all going to this Alliance of American Football. Seeing some of the people who are going there, is this a training ground for guys to kind of, move their way to the NFL, or do you think that this Alliance of American Football, I'm not saying should be taken seriously as a competitor, but that will be legit, have a chance to make it because of some of the people who are working there?
Well, I think the key is it's certainly going to be credible, and the comparisons have been made between that and the XFL.
Maybe that's the word I should have. Yeah, maybe that's the better word. Is this going to be credible football that fans will get behind and support and, have a nice spring alternative?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Evidence says fans really don't support a minor league product. At least history says that. Ultimately, if you can get TV networks to pay for a product, and obviously, the one thing in the television world that has held up as far as ratings, at least when compared to everything else, is professional sports. And the rates you can charge have only gone up and up and up, and that's because it is the one sort of DVR-proof outlet still there for that particular industry. So I think ultimately it comes down to whether they can get a network to pay them a significant amount of money for the product, and if that is the case, they could probably survive. Now, they are going to be televised on CBS Sports Network, I think, from the start, but that's not relevant. That's not really going to pay the bills, so to speak. So we'll see how it shakes out, but there's no doubt they've gotten a lot of guys with NFL pedigree. So from a personnel standpoint and how they're going to run the league, it's going to be very credible. Whether people want a spring league and what is essentially a minor league, I don't know. Evidence, as I said, suggests there's been so many tries at it over the years, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, I saw, I guess Marvez also tweeted that Daryl Johnston is going to be the GM of one of the Alliance of American Football franchises that is going to San Antonio. Mike Riley, I guess that's the former, Oregon State coach, is going to be also San Diego Charger coach, right?
Chargers, yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, Daryl Johnston, is he leaving the booth?
What's that?
Is he leaving the booth?
No, there's a number of guys who I think he's going to do both, and you can do that as long as you're employer. So I don't think he's doing that. I think he's going to continue with Fox as well as take on this job. But they've gotten a lot of big names.
Former Browns GM Phil Savage, by the way, also is going to the
left
Phoenix.
the Senior Bowl to take that job. He had been sort of running the Senior Bowl for years. And I think this is a bigger story in regards to the XFL and the fact that it just makes it more difficult for that league. They're going to get the jump. It's going to start beforehand. And it's interesting. I've mentioned this before on the show. The guy running the AAF is Charlie Ebersol, who's the son of Dick Ebersol, who did the special on the XFL for ESPN. So it's kind of this intertwined. He's trying to learn from the mistakes his dad and Vince McMahon made with the XFL. And I think he's doing a good job on paper. But if you think about it, I mean, leagues can exist. You see all the minor leagues in baseball, but they're there for a reason, as a feeder system. And generally, you have sort of the Phillies paying the freight for their minor league affiliates and every other major league team. So from that aspect, that's why a system like that can work. But if you're on your own expecting to make money with a minor league product, I just don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, now there's a couple of differences here. For the people out there who have not heard about the AAF or familiar with it, number one, John, they are going to have shorter games. They say that their play clock is going to be shorter. They think that it's going to be about 2.5 hours as opposed to about a 3.5 hour window. So that was one thing that will be different. There's also going to be no kickoffs or extra points, something that we could potentially be seeing. Now, the NFL, we know, took things from the XFL when they were around the first time, and this could be something that they elect to do as well.
Yeah, that might ultimately be their biggest impact on this game. And you're right, especially with the production of the telecast from the XFL. The NFL sort of stole some things from that, most notably that spider cam, it was called at the time, that goes over the field. And so many people liked it last year when they started using it. That came directly from the XFL. So they're not adverse to taking good ideas and putting it in the NFL product. And they'll certainly look at stuff like that, and maybe it'll help. But from the AAF standpoint, unless they get some kind of deal with the NFL as sort of a developmental league, and the NFL has talked about that a lot, especially with quarterbacks, is they'd like to have some kind of developmental system. So if they could get them to underwrite things, and there's so many football people in this, that could change it. You know, you could have broadcasting on the NFL Network. That could make the league into something that's viable. But unless something like that happens, it's going to be really difficult.
Now, this is interesting because a quote from Ebersol says, you look at almost any study of professional and collegiate football, the kickoff is one of the least popular plays among fans, and it's one of the most dangerous. So why are we still doing it? Do you think that the kickoff is one of the least popular or one of the most popular?
Well, I haven't done the studies, so I can't. If that's true, if that's true,
That's
I've never heard
surprising.
it.
I've never heard that.
I think, yeah. I mean, I was talking to Dave Phipp with the Eagles special teams coach, and he kind of shook his head about maybe a world without the kickoffs, and he joked, "What are we going to say? You know, when the league year is approaching, we always say it kicks off September 6th. What are we going to say in that instance?" He was joking. From every fan I've ever talked to, it's one of the most exciting plays in football. It always has been, and they're tuned to more of all the touchbacks are boring. I think in other words, I think if you talk over the past couple of years when they've made it easier to have touchbacks, and it's in a lot of ways, if you have a strong-legged kicker, you're just sitting out there doing nothing, essentially. You're just waiting for him to kick it through the end zone. Yeah, maybe that group. But if you're talking about guys who watched Billy White Shoes Johnson return kicks and all the way up to Cordero Patterson in this era, that's one of the most exciting plays in the sport when it happens.
Now, think about this. This is interesting. Onside kicks will be replaced in the AAF with a chance to gain 10 yards on a single play from the offensive team's own 35-yard line in order to maintain possession. So they basically give you the ball on a 4th down and 10 and say, if you can get the first down, you retain possession so that there are no onside kicks. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of all that, and people will jump. I mean, hey, call it traditional, let's call it old school, call it whatever you want, but I don't think a sport this popular has to go the gimmick route.
Right. Now, the quote here from Ebersol was, you basically have the same exact statistical likelihood of gaining control of the ball on an onside kick as you do 4th and 10. That I don't agree with.
Yeah, that can't be true. I mean, 4th and 10, look, if you had an option today, 4th and 10, with, say, Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback versus onside kick, you're taking 4th and 10 with Aaron on the field all day long. I mean, good quarterbacks get 3rd or 4th and 10s all the time. And by the way, how does it work if you're a great defense and say you got a team 3rd and 18, what, it turns into a 4th and 10? How is that fair for that defense? I don't like that. It's very gimmicky. It's not needed in a sport that is this popular. And when you do get an onside kick, look, it's from statistics standpoint, it's unlikely you're ever going to get an onside kick. But when you do get one, it's pretty darn exciting.
Yeah.
You remember that Packers-Seahawks playoff game? It's relevant and it could be an historical play, and you're just taking another avenue out of that.
A third difference that they list is regional drafts and local players. We all get the idea of this, that the Phoenix franchise would be able to basically draft from Arizona State, Arizona, Northern Arizona, and that basically you would have players that are very familiar to your region playing for your team. I mean, this isn't something that the NFL it might make it more intriguing in terms of the region and those players you're familiar with, but keep in mind, college football is not very popular in the Northeast, so I don't know that would really be a draw to the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good idea for a minor league to do.
Well, you do like it for them.
I do, yeah, but not for, obviously, the NFL. And you can't do that for the reasons you just expressed, mainly, and because you want to ensure competitive balance. But when you're fighting for viewers and fighting for fans and fighting for money, I mean, if there's any familiarity, if they're – you mentioned the Arizona team. Yeah, if they learned players from the University of Arizona or Arizona State over a 3 or 4 year period, they know who they are and they're going to continue to play with the local professional team. That at least helps. I'm not sure it helps a ton, but it'll at least help a little bit, especially if they're high profile positions like quarterback or running back or skill position, where people are going to notice the name and say, hey, I enjoyed watching him play. I'll spend $10 and go watch him play again.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the NFL, if you were to do a regionalized draft, you would have teams essentially like the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Miami
who gets Alabama?
Right. You would have a lot of teams in the South region that would be pretty darn good at the NFL level, and the teams in the Northeast, the Patriots, the Eagles, the Giants, that would not be so good.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be stuck with Penn State versus Alabama, and there's a lot of Penn State or Rutgers, and let's be honest. And maybe you could fight for Birmingham to get an NFL team, and then they'd be the best team. So, no, that's not. Obviously, that's not viable at the professional level. Whereas I said the whole thing with professional sports, and I just talked about this off air a little bit with Josh before I came on, and the NBA draft even worse. It's supposed to be about competitive balance. You're only as strong as a league if all your teams are strong. And if you skew a draft process to give a certain team an advantage, your whole league is not going to be strong. And that's really the problem the NBA has, because they can't figure out the draft and they can't figure out how to stop people from losing on purpose. NFL doesn't want to get involved with that kind of mess.
Another unique player bonus. This is interesting. Then, we look at the NFL. They are giving bonuses in 3 different categories, John. Winning, reaching certain statistical milestones, and fan engagement. For the first time in professional sports, we're creating something around fan engagement bonuses. We're looking to incentivize both the fan and the player to have a symbiotic relationship where the better the player does, the fan has the ability to reward that, not just as a player on the field, but on your fantasy team, socializing with you during the week, the charitable work they do, and the support structure. What if I said to you, okay, you come and play in my league, and the better you do engaging your fans, the more money you make? How about that?
Sounds like clickbait in journalism, but which I'm not a fan of. So, I mean, again, when you're, this is Bill Veeck stuff. Anybody who doesn't know Bill Veeck, the famous baseball owner who would do all these outrageous stunts to get people in, and it's gimmicks, and that's and you see it all the time in minor league baseball, and it's because you have to draw people in. When you have a $177 million salary cap, you don't have to worry about giving players bonus, 50,000 bonuses or whatever they're going to get. I mean, that's where the money's going. That's where it's designed to go in the NFL. And, and then you're talking about the ultimate team sport and rewarding people for statistics. Well, if you're a running back, you're not going to get very good statistics if your offensive line stinks. And if you're a receiver, you might be better than some guy on another team, but he's going to have better statistics because he's got the quarterback. So maybe it's fun for certain people, but it certainly doesn't make a lot of sense.
That one is very interesting, though, that, could you imagine a situation where the NFL guys are actually jealous of these guys playing the AAF because they're making money based on Twitter engagement?
No, I can't, because NFL players are going to be making, the minimum salary in the NFL is going to dwarf, and forget about superstars. Obviously, you're getting
what level of play, what kind of player do you anticipate playing in this? Would you say?
Well, you're going
to see guys that are playing on NFL teams that are like practice squad players going here? Or is it going to be exclusive if you're in the NFL, you're there, you can't, if you wanted to better yourself and say, hey, I want to go get some more reps?
Well, no, I don't think any NFL team will approve of that just because of the injury risk. But it's going to be the guys, and we'll see it this summer. And you have 90-man off-season rosters, and you go down to 53, and then you get your 10-man practice squad. And that's 63, and you generally have a few people on injured reserve by that point. So it's going to be that range from 70 to 90. And they have a decision to make as far as, where do they want to go if they want to continue their NFL dream. Now, the good part Ebersol is doing is that I believe he has made it clear that if someone gets an NFL offer, they can lose, they can leave. They're not going to be bound by the contract. So that's going to be very helpful. Guys will want to continue. It's probably better than going to the CFL or something of that nature. They get to stay in the country. They get to play the same game. So in that theory helps them. The CFL has different rules. So I think, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about players from 70 to 90 on an off-season roster, and their goal will be to get back to the NFL.
One of the things about college football is a lot of times there's high-profile players that just aren't good enough for the league. There's especially a lot of high-profile programs, quarterbacks. So I guess we'll see a lot of those type of guys kind of hanging around.
Yeah, there's a lot of good college football players that just don't have the athletic ability to make the next step, but they're good players. Again, it comes down to the fact that I don't know how big the fan base is going to be. I think you're going to have a group of hardcore people who love football and love sort of the personnel aspect of it and know all the college players. But I think that's a very limited group. Even in the NFL, the vast majority of fans in what is the most popular sport by far in this country are casual fans. They don't know all the starters on the Eagles, never mind the 31 other teams. They just have fun with their friends and watch the games and enjoy it, maybe go a couple times a year, but they're not hardcore. And I'm not sure if that fan base is big enough, and that's who a league like the AAF is going to be drawing from, and I just don't think it's financially feasible, and we've seen it time and time again, dating back to the World League, really the AFL, and the USFL, and the XFL, and all these leagues over the years. Every single one of them has failed, and there's a reason for that.
By the way, Birmingham does have a team. They are in the AAF. They should be pretty good.
Yeah. And remember, the USFL tried to take on the NFL. They had legitimate stars, legitimate superstar players. Herschel Walkers of the world would be the most famous. But every single team in that league, that's
Reggie
where
White.
Anthony Carter started. Reggie White started with Memphis. Hall of Fame players. Gary Zimmerman started in the USFL, another Hall of Fame player. They had legitimate superstar first-round picks who decided to play in the USFL because they were paying more money at the time, and they couldn't make it. So I don't know how, again, guys from 70 to 90, the Stephen Roberts of the world, I'm not picking on him. He's in Eagles camp. I mean, he's not going to make the Eagles. He might go play in the AAF, but are you going to be excited about watching him play?
The team's cities, real quick, are Atlanta. I guess it tells you how much support the Falcons have there. Birmingham, Memphis, Orlando, Phoenix, Salt Lake, and San Diego has a team in the alliance, and now the 8th team was announced today. It is San Antonio will have a football team now. So some, Birmingham, Memphis, I think they were the Memphis Maniac, the Birmingham, these are all XFL, Orlando, these were XFL cities.
Yeah, and USFL, Birmingham, they've had everything. They've had a USFL team, an XFL team. I think they might have had a CFL team when the CFL tried to. Yeah,
Baltimore had a CFL team.
Yeah, tried to come to America in that short period. And San Antonio had a minor league team, so they go to a lot of the same cities. San Diego makes sense because they lost the Chargers.
I would just like to see, it's only 8 teams now, but I would like to see if there would be some sort of viable. I guess you say because they said they're going to create their own fantasy league. If you see a thing where it does gain some popularity and coverage that people legitimately care, but I don't know with the level of player that they're going to have that's going to happen.
Yeah,
sounds fun though. 234 days away.
Sure, and the NFL, as I said, that would be the saving grace because I think they need a developmental system. And I'm not saying they should adopt a system where there's going to be affiliates and they're going to completely fund the league because I don't think they want to get involved to that degree. But if they underwrite it at least somewhat as a developmental league, like I said, televise the games on the NFL Network, perhaps
that'd be interesting.
it could work. Yeah, perhaps it could work. Arena football. Arena football's been around for a long time. And in certain cities, it's even flourished.
Isn't there 4 teams left in that league?
They're down. I was about to get to that. They're down to 4 teams. 2 of them are owned by Ron Jaworski. So when the Soul faced the Albany, whatever Albany is, Jaws
the
owns
Empire.
He owns both of those teams. So I'm not sure how relevant it's going to be when the Soul win another championship if they do. But it's difficult, especially people who want to watch sports want a major league environment, and you can't take on the NFL. So, how many people really want to watch AAA baseball? How many people want to watch the G League? How many people?
Well, part of the reasons why you want to watch
AHL.
Part of the reasons why you even do want to watch some of those is because you're looking at the next young player that is coming up. You're not potentially getting that here because there's no affiliation with the professional team.
Well, yeah, and
heck, you don't even want to watch the G League because those guys aren't like the young stars that are coming up, like where baseball has that at least going for them.
Yeah, and there's some, I don't want to downgrade minor league baseball because it's a lot of fun, especially if you go to a live environment and go to the ballpark, and it can be tremendous fun. And it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg like a major league game.
Right.
But, again, we're talking about relevance. We're talking about making money, and it's really hard to make money unless you're being underwritten, in that case, in AAA and AA and single A, all the way down to rookie league ball. Everybody has an affiliate in Major League Baseball, all those teams. So they're being underwritten. That's the reason they exist, because of it's a developmental system. The NFL already has that. It's called college football, and it's free. Now at times they get upset because they're playing a different brand of football at the college level, and pro coaches get very upset, especially with quarterbacks and certain other positions, offensive linemen. They're not thrilled with the receivers coming in and knowing 2 or 3 routes, and that's it. But they also don't pay for it. It is free, and you get what you pay for. Their job at the college level isn't to get players ready for the pros. It's to win, because if you don't win,
you're out
at the college level. Yeah, you're going to get fired.
John McMullen on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, and of course, we will have plenty more off-season stuff to get into. We will start taking a look at the divisions, the off-seasons of all these teams, leading you into Eagles training camp here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, Mike.